Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down on the opening line at EliteSportsBetting.com. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and as always, the NBA has a huge slate of games for Martin Luther King Day. We got 14 to talk about here, and I brought my experts in so that we can talk about them. So let's get the formalities out of the way right quick here. So, Paulie, how you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good, Benny. Ready to get our way through this massive 14-game slate.
Yeah, I know it's been a busy weekend for you. I was hanging out over in chat. A lot of good college basketball games firing off. We had, a lot of subs making a lot of money this weekend, which is always a good thing there. And, hopefully we can keep it rolling today with such a big slate. Frank, what's going on out there?
What's up? Yeah, I dropped in the chat. It was pretty wild for my first few experiences in there during the games. It's a wild time.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk all the time about how in-game is where we're finding a lot of value lately. So, we get down before the game starts, and then depending on how things work out, sometimes we get some good in-game bets going. And, we were on a streak this weekend and made a lot of money in college basketball, had a pretty good day in football. So now it's our turn to keep it going with some NBA basketball. And that's what I wanted to talk to you two guys about here, because we got a ton of games on the slate today. Decent amount of injury news. We'll try to talk about it all as we go along. But let's get into this because we got 14 games to talk about. So first one up, Detroit Pistons, Washington Wizards. Wizards opened as a 1-point favorite, 233 total. Kind of hanging right around those numbers here at the moment. Paulie, we'll start with you up top. Anything you're looking at in this game, Detroit and Washington?
Yeah, I bet Washington as a pick'em late last night. So Washington's already played Detroit 3 times this year. They're 2-1 versus them. Their 2 wins were by 14 and 16 points. The losses by 30 where they got basically blown out. This matchup, even though it's a pick'em, I don't think these teams are necessarily equal. Washington has played much better of late, especially now that they've got a couple players back. I mean, if you recall, we're talking a couple weeks back, they're down to 7 healthy guys, 8 healthy guys. They got a couple more healthy now. And Detroit seems to be the team that's completely just injury-ridden and, down in the dumps a little bit. And I think Washington at home here should be closer to about a 3.5-point favorite. So I'm playing Washington here.
Yeah, I mean, we've noticed you got Davis Bertans who's back and Bradley Beal is healthy and Thomas Bryant is back in the mix for them right now. So this was a team that was grabbing guys off the bench and pulling guys up from the D-League. And, now they're pretty much back to where they were. And Detroit is kind of on the opposite side of that spectrum with, Blake Griffin being out right now and Reggie Jackson still being out. Like, they got a bunch of injuries that they're dealing with and guys playing roles they don't normally play. So, Frank, how about you? Anything you're looking at here with Detroit and Washington?
Yeah, I would have liked Washington to pick them. I didn't get them. It's like 1.5 now. My line's closer to 2, but 231 on the total, so not a big edge there. If this total keeps going up, maybe I'd consider the under. But we've been riding Washington. I've been riding Washington a little bit this year. I don't play a lot of sides, but when I have, it seems like I've played Washington quite a few. And they've been probably better than what you'd think. Their bench is a little better than we expected, and we've talked about that before. But I don't have a play on this game unless there's a lot of movement, another point or point and a half. But with this slate, I'm probably just going to stick with what I got here.
Yeah, and we see this a lot with teams that have a lot of injuries. You get a bunch of guys that have to play a bunch of minutes, and then when the starters come back, now all of a sudden, instead of being a 5 or 6 man deep rotation, now you got 8 or 9 guys that you feel comfortable in, and usually turns out pretty well for them. So if you can still find Washington around to pick them, or if this total keeps creeping up a little bit, Washington seems to be the side that we like here, and if we can get the total to creep up a little bit, maybe even trying to hit the under on it, would be something to keep an eye on here, maybe even an in-game opportunity over there.
Yeah.
All right, so next game we can talk about. We got Toronto Raptors against the Atlanta Hawks. Raptors are favored by 8, I think. Is that still the line right now? I'm seeing 9 and 8.5 in some places as well. It opened at 8. 231 total was the open. I see it coming down anywhere between 229 to 230 in different spots, depending on what book you're looking at. Frank, we'll start with you on this one. Anything on the Toronto-Atlanta game?
Yeah, I like the over here. Toronto's been a weird team. Last week we played an over and an under in one of their games. I don't necessarily, they've gotten healthy over the last week or so. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the correlation of that, halfway through the year, They've been playing right around league average, a little faster than average, 14.1 seconds per possession. But over the last 3 games, they're 13.1 seconds per possession as they've gotten healthier and healthier. It seems like they're starting to push that pace a little bit. I got this game lined at 233.5, so it's hanging out around 230. Like I said, I've been pretty indifferent on Toronto all year. I haven't noticed a lot of trends with them at all in my model, except for lately. We played an over, and I think we played an under and a live under in the chat over the weekend. And now we like the over again. So it's kind of interesting. I think they're going to push the pace. I think they're going to continue to push the pace. Atlanta plays fast. Like I said, 233, 234 is my number. So, decent edge there on the over.
Yeah, Atlanta being a team that has played faster on the year, so actually pacing up Toronto a little bit. Both of these teams are projecting for above their average here, Paulie, so a lot of points expected to be scored. Anything you're looking at?
Yeah, I have no play in this game, but slight lean towards Frank's play on the total.
All right.
Yeah,
So
and if you look at their last few games, they scored 130 points, 140 points, 122 points. So they're getting the efficiency as well, which is you kind of see the opposite happen usually. These teams pace up and then the efficiency goes to shit, but they kept their efficiency and have paced up by an entire second. So.
Yeah. And I mean, that probably has a lot to do with the fact that they got everybody healthy right now. So you got some better, more efficient players out there on the floor. So even though they're playing faster, they're playing faster with guys like Van Vliet and Siakam who, are guys that can put the ball in the basket and have been out.
Oh, yeah.
Weeks. All right. So let's move on to a next game. Here's one that's a little bit on the fence. Philly going up against the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are favored by 1.5 points here. The total is 220-ish. It opened at the Nets being a 2-point underdog at home with a total of 218. I'm assuming this has to do with the Al Horford news. Al Horford may or may not be able to play here today. Kyrie Irving is back, and he has been playing lately for the Nets on the other side, which might have something to do with why the lines are moving around here a little bit. Like I said, Philly opened as a 2.5-point favorite. Currently, we're sitting on Brooklyn as a 1.5-point favorite from what I'm seeing, maybe even 2 points in some of these places. Paulie, anything you're looking at here?
Yeah, I played last night. I played Brooklyn at a pick'em. I still like it at the -1.5, even -2. I had the game closer to -3.5 if Horford plays, and -5 if Horford is out. Okay. So one thing to note is these teams played earlier this week already. So we got a pretty good basis of what the matchups are going to be like. And Brooklyn was playing at Philly and had a 4-point lead going into the fourth quarter and just kind of blew it. So now you're going to get a second chance with that, and you add the fact that Horford might be out. I'm definitely leaning Brooklyn on this one.
Yeah, it was weird. They Philly then came back and played the New York Knicks and almost wound up losing that game to the New York Knicks as well. So this is not a team that's playing really good basketball at the moment. Frank, anything that you're looking at here?
Yeah, so I have Philly as a small favorite if Horford plays, but he's going to be worth 3.5 points. So the number to me looks like Horford's not playing, which would indicate that it's correct to me. He's not a huge, total buster. He's an efficient offense guy, efficient defense guy, slightly above average on both sides. So he's not going to affect the total in my model, one way or the other that much. But that being said, with the side, he's probably worth 3.5 points. So I've got it at like +1. If he's out, that's like a -2, -2.5. So nothing for me there. I've got the total at 220. So just no play here. It just looks to me like Horford's going to be out, according to the line and the line movement. I would be surprised to see, Philly as slight favorites opening up and then be slight dogs and not have some sort of expectation there.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm leaning too. When I wrote up the fantasy article today, I'm kind of expecting Horford not to be playing based on the line. So if he is in, that could change things around. If not, though, I think this is around where we're looking here. All right, so let's move on to another game. We got the Orlando Magic against the Charlotte Hornets, 2 of the bottom 5 teams in the league for pace on the year. We're looking at a low total in this one, 207.5. Orlando on the road, favored by 3 or 4 points, depending on where you're looking at it here. We'll start with – where do we go here? We start with Frank on this one. Anything you're looking at?
Yeah, so I'm back on my Charlotte under garbage. I've got it lined at 205. So anything like 207, 207 and a half, I'm seeing out there. 207 and a half is good to play the under in this one. We've talked about them. These overs for Charlotte have been hitting a little bit. I've been playing the other unders, been getting good value, and then getting pretty unlucky, on some end game stuff. But Orlando's playing slightly slower. Charlotte is playing about half a second slower over the last week or so. So they were kind of close to average pace and then slowed down a lot, and we played a bunch of unders, and then they went back to normal for a little bit, and they slowed down even more now. So they just keep slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna ride these unders, and like I said, just keep playing and see what we end up with. We're a little unlucky with them. I think they're like 1-3 over the last 4 unders we played, but they should have been 4-0. There's 2 overtimes and a 75-point fourth quarter in there that barely threw a game over. So we'll take it again and see where we end up.
Yeah, and to build on what Frank's saying, with Charlotte slowing down right now, they're actually on the season averaging the slowest pace of any team in the league right now. So this is definitely a team that you would expect to be on the lower end of scoring most nights. Paulie, anything you're looking at here, Orlando, Charlotte?
I have nothing for this game, Benny.
All right, so nothing there for Paulie. A little bit of a lean to the under there for Frank. Next game is one that's going to be interesting, and I'm going to be looking to watch. We got the New Orleans Pelicans going up against the Memphis Grizzlies in this one. Let's see. Let me get the most recent line. So it opened at Memphis -2 with a 237 total. It's up to 2.5 for Memphis, and the total has jumped a little bit too. I'm seeing 238.5 in a lot of places here. So we got a little bit of an increase in the total, a little bit of an increase in the money going in on Memphis. Couple injuries on the New Orleans side. Drew Holiday's been out for a while. It looks like he's going to remain out in this one. The big thing, though, that might change is you got Derek Favors and Jahlil Okafor, who are both listed as questionable, and it kind of looks like both of those guys are going to sit, which means you're going to be down to, guys like Colo Melli and Jackson Hayes playing a lot of minutes at the power forward center spot. So it does make a little bit of sense to me why Memphis is favored here. Plus, Memphis is at home as well. So anything that you're looking at in the New Orleans-Memphis game, Paulie?
Yeah, this is a game where you kind of have to know the injury status before tossing your money in. If Favors is ruled out, I'd be leaning towards Memphis here. Even if the line moves a few points, I'd be willing to take that. Favors is worth a lot more to them, to New Orleans, than people realize. They've been playing really good of late, but that's mostly been since he got back from injury. And if he's out, it's going to change a little bit. I think they're 10-5 their last 15, something like that. And most of those wins have come when they've actually been dogs. But it's going to be an interesting game to watch with 2 of the best teams over the last couple weeks in terms of against the spread.
Yeah, 2 fast-paced teams as well, so there should be a lot of points. So this should be a pretty exciting game that we can watch around the middle of the day, 5 o'clock here on the East Coast, 4 o'clock in Paulie's time zone, and 3 or 2 o'clock for any of you guys who are more out west out there. Frank, anything you're looking at here, New Orleans, Memphis?
Yeah, with all the injuries, like Paulie said, I'm going to be avoiding this game. My rosters just happen to have Favors in, but again, I'm guessing, and I have Okafor and Holiday out. And I've got the game around to pick them, but if Favors is out, that's a big swing. And it's not because, Favors is a good player. He's like a +2 player. The problem is that the guys like Frank Jackson and Etuan Moore and all these guys that get extra minutes because he's out are so bad that it ends up, him being worth more to them than he would another team, say, that would have some sort of adequate bench players, to fill his role. I've got it totaled at like 240, so I agree with the over movement, but I'm just not gonna. I think it'll go up too if Favors and all these guys are rolled out. Favors is a good defender, so I could see that just continuing to go up, and it looks like it is right now as we speak. So, I'm gonna avoid this game just because of the question marks, but I agree with the initial movement so far.
Yeah, so not much here in terms of getting some money down on it, but the line is moving in the way we think it should, and depending on the Favors news will probably be which way you should be on the total, but at this point I don't think there's a lot of value there to take it. Next game, this one's going to be a little bit of a shit show. We got the New York Knicks against the Cleveland Cavaliers. This one opened up as a pick'em with a 222 total. Since then, Cleveland has gone on to be slightly favored. I'm looking at about 1.5 here. The total has moved a little bit, but not much, down to 221.5 from 222, so not a big move there. So let's see, Frank, we'll start with you on this one. Knicks, Cavaliers, anything you're looking at?
Yeah, so I played the under. Just small play for me. 220.5 is my number. I agree with the side. There's a lot of question marks here. Smith, Barrett, Porter, Knight. Henson's been questionable. But a lot of these guys are getting replaced by guys that are similar to them, so I'm not too worried about it. I think I'm going to like the under either way. If I look at Cleveland over the last few games, they're 29th. Throughout the season, they're 30th. Throughout the last week, they're 29th. So they're actually playing even slower, though. They're almost a half second slower. I've been riding a little bit of these Cleveland unders as of late. I played one in game over the weekend. Knicks haven't really changed much at all, but Cleveland, it seems like, especially in the second half of these games, really just slows down and really just tries to take the air out of the ball. I think because they want to lose. They lost by multiple possessions in a game. They were up like 15, halfway through the third over the weekend. So I think they scored like 11 points in the fourth quarter or something like that. So I'm going to take these unders as long as they keep doing that. I think if they get a lead in this game at all, I think they'll pack it in and not really care to win at all, to be honest.
Taking tanking to a whole new level here, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's something.
Yeah, I mean, over that weekend, that game over the weekend was just incredible. It was just like they just stopped playing. It was amazing, And then they had a little bit of, heroics at the end. Where they made some like and ones that boosted that game up a little bit, but it still stayed under. So I'm going to take another under here.
Yeah, they're basically looking to trade Kevin Love right now, kind of showcasing him a little bit to see if he'll be out of town. And then that'll probably help with the losses after they get rid of him because, he's one of their better players at the moment and one of the few guys that's carrying him. So, Paulie, how about you? Knicks, Cavs, anything you're looking at?
Yeah, no plays for me in this game, buddy.
All right, so let's move on to one that's a little bit closer to your home here. Chicago Bulls going up against the Milwaukee Bucks. We got a 14-point Milwaukee favored at home right here. We got a total of about 225, I think I'm looking at. 225.5 is what I'm seeing here. So, Paulie, we'll start with you. Anything on Chicago, Milwaukee?
Yeah, as you probably know, you know where I'm going when we're going in the Chicago game, right? I'm taking first quarter under as that keeps on hitting most games. Bulls are now hitting that a little over 76% of the time. And surprisingly, if you look into like Milwaukee has one of the highest first quarter under hit rates as well, hitting it over 63%. So if you put those two together, I'm definitely playing Chicago again here. Was able to grab 58.5 overnight. I think it dropped a little bit since then, but it's playable even if it drops on a couple points, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm seeing a 57.5 right here. Still playing 57.5?
Still playable, 57.5, yep.
All right, I was out in Vegas last week and took the Chicago Bulls first quarter and first half under and made a bunch of extra money right before I went to the bar. So that was good. So shout out to you for that one, Paulie. I heard you in the back of my head saying, yeah, Bulls under, Bulls under, Bulls under. So that worked out pretty good. So I'm happy about that. Frank, anything you're looking at here, Chicago Bulls and Milwaukee Bucks?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Paulie's analysis. We've talked about this. These first quarter stuff is all about the rotation, and it seems like these books are just putting out, their algorithm that says, this is the total for the game, so this is the total for the first quarter, and you can kind of exploit that with what the rotations are doing. If I look at Chicago over the last week, they're playing slower, slightly slower than usual, but Milwaukee's playing about a second faster. Milwaukee's one of the fastest teams in the NBA to begin with, and they're playing a second faster over their last 3 games, and the point totals are showing up for it. 127, 122, 128, 128, 117. So they're really flying, and the efficiency is keeping up with what they're doing. So I do like the over a little bit. I did play the over. I would play over 226.5, over 227. It looks like most players are 226.5. I've got it at 230, but don't get Lopez is out too, which helps our overplay. Well, he's doubtful, but don't get worked up after the first quarter because, like Paulie said, halfway through, Kobe comes in and then things hit the fan and they start to score and everyone starts to score. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the first quarter go well under and then the game go over, considering the pace that's been required here by Milwaukee. It is a big spread, which kind of makes me nervous at the end if they've got a big lead. But like I said, they've had big leads over last week, and they just keep going faster.
So let me ask you this question here, Frank, because you said you like the first quarter under, but you like the over for the game.
I like Paulie's first quarter unders. I mean, his analysis on this is spot on. Chicago balls up the first quarter, and then halfway through it, when the bench guys come in, they speed way up.
Yeah. So here's the question I was going to ask. I mean, if we like the first quarter under, we think there's a good chance of that hitting, and then we like the over for the game. Is this one of those situations where instead of getting it down pre-flop, maybe we wait till, somewhere in the middle of the first quarter and then see if we can get a better number than the number to start the game when we're in-gaming it,
I would have to see the in-game numbers because they're pretty variant. Maybe that's something we can do tonight to start to pay attention to that. I wish we would have done that, a couple weeks ago when we realized this. But I have been riding Chicago unders in general. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to, I wasn't going to – if I'm playing the under and Paulie's playing the first quarter under, I didn't want to play the over after the first quarter, right?
Right.
But I think that is a decent analysis to say – a decent thought process to say, okay, well, with how fast Milwaukee's been playing, especially if this game's close after first quarter, let's see if we can get if we can kind of get like almost a middle situation, like you're saying, where we can hit the under in the first quarter and the over for the game. If we think we're going to get a good number there, because I mean, I was watching the live stats, not to harp on it too much, but I was watching live stats on, live feeds on possessions and pace and stuff. And the second, third, and fourth quarters in these Chicago games are super fast, but the first quarters are super slow.
Yeah. So go ahead, Paulie.
In terms of the first quarter, the pace usually picks up around the 3:34 minute mark in the first quarter. So if you're looking for a live spot, that's pretty much the peak you're going to get, because that's going to be right when Kobe White checks in and Chris Dunn checks out.
Sit there and watch the rotations for that first commercial break and just go for it. Yeah.
All right.
Right around the 4 minute mark.
Yeah, and there you go. And these are the kind of things that we do in chat. So if any of you guys aren't signed up at www.elitesportsbetting.com, we have a basketball chat. You're going to see Paulie in there most nights. Guys like myself and Frank and Tommy all hop in there every once in a while.
Be in there all day today for every game. So
yeah, so it'll be a good day here today. We were in there all day yesterday and the day before, Saturday, for college basketball. I don't think I've ever remember seeing that many people in the chat, and we hit a bunch of the end games there and had a pretty good day. So it's also a lot of fun because you get everybody in there talking shit and sweating the games out together. So definitely something that I would advise you guys to do if you're part of the package. And if you're not part of the package, make sure you sign up. The VIP is the lowest price it's been, and then you can come and hang out with us and make some money and have some fun while you're sweating these games out.
Even if you're not getting a bunch down in game, it's mass chaos. It's a fun time to kind of watch it unfold.
At the very least, the entertainment value is worth it for you. I'll tell you that.
We pretty much just make fun of Rob the entire time, even though he's not in.
It's in between bets. Yeah, there's a lot of downtime in between when we're dropping bets, so there's a lot of things we got to do there. All right, so let's talk about the next one. Pretty interesting game here. Oklahoma City against Houston. A little bit of a revenge narrative for a couple of the guards on either team here. Looking at a 229 total here with Houston at home favored by 6.5 at the moment here. Let me see if that's actually the opening line. Let me see if that's still where we're at here.
Still is, I believe.
Yeah, 6.5 and 229. So not much movement on this line overall here. Frank, actually, Paulie, I think we start with you this time. So, Paulie, up top, anything on OKC Houston?
Yeah, I took OKC plus 6.5. To me, this line's a little bit disrespectful. It seems like the books just, aren't catching up to Oklahoma City's, their play, and they're not also catching up to how bad Houston has been playing of late. Mm-hmm. So I have this line about a 3-point edge on it. So Oklahoma City, they're 15-5 against the spread on the road, 18-7 against the spread as an underdog, and they've played Houston, I think twice this year, and they covered both times against them. Matchup-wise, I really like Oklahoma City against what they've done against Harden, especially with Chris Paul on the offensive end being able to run it, and Houston just really hasn't been able to stop them as much as you would expect.
Yeah, Frank, these two teams played last week, and Houston kind of blew them. Oklahoma City kind of blew them out. It wasn't even close. It was one of the worst games I've seen out of Harden, and Westbrook didn't play well. Capella didn't play well. I mean, it looks like they have the key to beating Houston kind of figured out here. So what are you looking at in this OKC Houston game?
Yeah, I'm not playing the spread. My numbers on Houston have been a little bit everywhere. I can, depending on rotations and sources and things, and current numbers and more recent data, I could get this line anywhere from 5 to 10. They're a tough team to kind of nail down with all the variants. They go fast, they shoot a lot of threes, just that modern day NBA approach. Harden over the last 2 weeks has been not good, shooting like 25% from three, and that this team's going to go as he goes. That's just it. He's one of the best players in the NBA. He's one of the most efficient players in the NBA because of, not because he's like a Steph Curry level shooter, but he takes the right shots. He's getting the basket, he's getting free throws, and he's shooting threes from the corner and from the top of the key, and that's how current day NBA is going to be structured. That being said, I did play the over a little bit. I have a pretty small edge there, but it's a holiday, so why not fire? I like it at 230 is which I played, which is like the worst number I would play at normal vig. Minus 107, minus 105, minus 110, but I wouldn't play worse than 230. I do see some 230 and a halves out there. The reason for that, I think these Houston totals, 2 weeks ago we're seeing them in 240s, range. And I think that the reason that they're going down is because of Harden shooting, which I would expect to regress back towards his true talent level. So like I said, not a huge edge either way, but I think we're getting, a couple points of value here because of Harden being so bad recently. But 3-point shooting is so variant, and it'll come back. He'll start making more shots here and go on a little run.
Yeah, that's the one thing with Houston. You mentioned your numbers could be anywhere from -5 to -10. That's because with the way Houston plays, they're one of those teams that can go out there and beat everybody if they're hitting their shots, and they could lose to any team in the NBA if they're not hitting their shots. So right now they haven't been hitting their shots. They've been playing towards the lower end of their range, and that's why we're getting some smaller numbers on them with the team totals and things like that.
Yeah.
Right now. So there we go. So we have a little bit of a bet on an over here and a little bit of a bet on OKC from our guys here. So this could be a game that I'm going to have to look at a little bit more. We'll put a star next to that one, and we'll talk about it later. All right, so Sacramento Kings, Miami Heat is the next game we have up here. I have let's see, it opened at 224. It's down to 223, so a little bit of movement on the total. Miami opened as a 6-point favorite, and I'm still seeing them pretty much as a 6-point favorite across the board. So, Frank, what are you looking at here for Sacramento, Miami?
Yeah, so I like some Sacramento overs as they've gotten healthier. They've really sped up. They were pretty average throughout the year from a pace perspective, and then they got healthy and they've really sped up over last week. That being said, I think the number has caught up to them now that they've had about a week or 2 weeks of running at this pace. So they're the second fastest team over the last week, next to the Bucks, but I've got the game at 6 at 222, so no real edge for me here. Miami's on a back-to-back, so that hurts them a little bit. But like I said, nothing of significance here for me.
Paulie, anything for you?
Yeah, I played Miami here at -6. Their interesting thing is they're 10-2 against the spread after a loss. So narrative-wise, after losing to the Spurs the other day, and they're 14-4-1 against the spread at home. And they're just overall just a better team here. So I'm going to play them at 6. It's not a massive edge. It's about a 1.5 point edge I have here. The line should be about 7.5, 8. But we play with Miami here.
Yeah, I'm actually even seeing a couple 6.5s here. So the line movement is going in the direction as as Paulie's saying right now. If you can still get it at 6 at even money right now, I think that's a decent way to get down on it. That's what you got down on it, right? 6, you said?
I got down at 6 minus 110.
Okay, yeah, so there you go. So 6 at normal juice. Wouldn't be chasing it too much more if it goes up from there, which I think is the direction that it's looking to go. So if you're interested, get your money down now on that one. Next game is a little bit tough to talk about. We got the Los Angeles Lakers against the Boston Celtics. This one, there's a bunch of guys out there listed as questionable. Anthony Davis, Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, I think, in this game as well. So you have a couple key significant pieces on these two teams right here. Let's see what they have. The Lakers opened as a 1.5 point favorite. I'm seeing it at -2 in most spots now. The big move, though, came in the total. Opened at 220.5, up to 223.5 right now. So, Paulie, we'll start with you on this one. Lakers and Celtics. Anything you're interested in?
Yep, this is actually one of my biggest edges of the day. I grabbed the Lakers money line -112 at open. And now it's obviously gone up. I still like it, the current market numbers, and I think it's a pretty big edge. even if you have all those players that we talked about sit out today, I have the game lined at 3 points, 3-point favorite for Lakers. And if you happen to have them all sit, including AD for the Lakers, so if you have Kemba, Jaylen Brown, Rondo, and AD all sit, I have the line closer to 7 because Boston's backups, sure you have Marcus Smart coming in there and starting, but if Kemba's out, their offensive efficiency drops down dramatically, and I don't know how they're going to keep up with the Lakers there. And I also don't know how they're going to guard LeBron with Jaylen Brown out. I mean, sure you have Tatum and stuff like that, but the matchups aren't going to work well across the board.
All right, so money on the Lakers side of that one. Frank, anything you're looking at here?
Yeah, so from what I can discern, it looks like the closest I can get to this number is marking everybody out. And I get 1.5, 222. So pretty much bang on the number. But, this Davis, Rondo, Brown, Kemba, all these guys questionable. I don't think it's really worth, my exploitation here. The Lakers with Davis out have played a lot faster, which is kind of interesting. They're like a second faster over the last week, and they're scoring a lot of points in the same process. But I'm not sure the reason for that. I admittedly haven't watched a lot of their games, but with Rondo and Davis out, it seems like they've pushed the pace a little bit. But still my numbers bang on for what the books are throwing out there.
All right, so not much there other than the Lakers side, and like Paulie said, it's starting to move away from them. So if you're interested, get your money down right now because the Lakers may wind up giving you a worse number later on in the day here. So next game we got Denver against Minnesota. I think we're starting to get into some of the 7 o'clock games here right now. Let's see. Wait a second. I had to have written this down wrong. Nope, I did not write this down wrong. The Timberwolves are a 2.5-point favorite in this one. 218 was what it opened at. The total is up to like 221 at the moment. We do have a bunch of guys on the Denver side listed as questionable. That might have something to do with it. You got Millsap questionable. You got Jamal Murray questionable. You got Gary Harris questionable. So those are basically three starters, 3 key pieces to this Denver team. Again, on the road against Minnesota. Minnesota just welcomed back Karl-Anthony Towns. Just traded away Jeff Teague. So we got some things going on with that rotation that are, going to be changing here. Frank, we'll start with you on this one. Denver, Minnesota. Anything you're looking at?
No play for me here. I do agree with where the line's at. And if I mark all those guys out, Harris, Murray, and Millsap, I get like Minnesota -4 in the total at 221.5. So that's right where it is. The reason for this, why you're surprised with the -2.5 it's out there is that those guys are questionable. It looks like at least 2 of them are going to be out. Denver's also on a back-to-back, so that's worth about 4 points. It could be on a back-to-back and on the road. Okay. And then you're talking about guys that collectively are worth, if I add these up, about 8.5 points to a point spread if they're all out. So you're talking about like a 12-point disadvantage to them being on the road, being on the back-to-back, and then if all 3 of those guys are out, that's quite the difference, and that's why you're kind of seeing that line is being where it is.
Yeah, and there you go. There's a little bit about line making for you guys as well as how they get to those numbers and what a couple of those things could be worth to a team. Paulie, anything for you, the Denver-Minnesota game?
No, the line's spot on, assuming that all 3 players are out. If any of them are ruled in, it might create a little bit of value.
Okay. So
yeah, just to be clear, I'm not playing Minnesota because I don't know who's in and who's out and who's going to play, and these guys are all worth different things. But I'll wait and see where that number ends up and who's in and who's out.
Yeah, I mean, so your assumption based on looking at some of these numbers, though, is that probably 2 of those 3 guys are going to be out, right?
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, Millsap hasn't played in a while. Is that right? I don't think he's played.
I know he's missed a couple games. Jeremy Grant's been playing.
Murray was in, and then he got hurt again, and then I think Harris is. I think Harris might play. That seems to be like from what I was reading, but he's the least valuable of the 3. So
right,
you could like if Harris was in, I would have this line at like 2.5.
All right, so really not much here in terms of value on one side or another that we can go and try to make some money off of, depending on what what works out from here. Next game's an interesting one that I'm going to have a lot of exposure to in fantasy. San Antonio Spurs taking on the Phoenix Suns in that one. Let me get the updated line here. Opened at 3.5. Phoenix being favored, 228 total. Total's up a little bit at 229. The line's up a little bit from 3.5 to 4.5 in Phoenix's favor. Let's see, where are we here? Paulie, we'll start with you on this one. Spurs, Suns, anything?
Yeah, I lean towards Phoenix here. Made a play earlier, parlaying them on the money line with Milwaukee to get it down to about minus 127. Like now you can get it around minus 140 because the Phoenix line jumped up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing is the Spurs are a terrible team against the spread after victory. I think they're 3-14 this year after victory against the spread. That's an interesting trend. You know, I don't want to say play based on trends generally, but that's a very when you see some interesting results like that, it's just something to note here. But playing on the back-to-back, Phoenix, pretty much almost at full strength. The only thing he's got, I think Aaron Baines, I think is doubtful for them.
Mm-hmm.
But matchup-wise, I really like the Suns against this Spurs team.
Okay, Frank, anything for you on this one?
Yeah, I lean on Phoenix too. I'm not going to play the side. It's just not quite enough value for me. But everything I have here likes Phoenix as well as in this game. Line at 229.5, so no edge there. Gay questionable. San Antonio on the back-to-back. We've seen Murray rest in these situations too, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him down, which would create even more value on Paulie's side. So I'm not necessarily going to play it. I think I've got enough exposure for today in the totals and stuff, but I do agree with that side if you want to play it.
Yeah, DeJounte Murray being out would open up more minutes for Bryn Forbes, who for some reason is seeing more minutes than everybody else in that team, and I have no idea why, but that's never a good thing for the Spurs. So
yeah, something to watch. I like I said, I don't have inside information, but he has sat some for the Spurs on back-to-backs, so it's interesting to watch. You may see a reduction in minutes either way.
Yeah, they babied him at the beginning of the year. They had him on like a hard minutes cap for like the first 15 games or so. He was playing like 24 minutes a game, and they, were basically sticking to that. So there's definitely something to that they're trying to, trying to keep him fresh, trying to keep him healthy there. So we got two more games here to talk about. Indiana and Utah is the next one up. Utah opened as a 7-point favorite, 217 total. Pretty much where I'm seeing it right now. Totals come down a little bit in some spots to 216.5 or so. Frank, we'll start with you on this one. Anything you see in the Indiana-Utah game?
Yeah, I like the under. The number opened up at like 216. I think I played at 217. Yeah, it was 217, 218 at a certain point, and it's crashed all the way down to 215. The reason for that is Indiana's playing slightly slower. Utah is playing as the slowest team in the NBA over the last 3 games. They have slowed way down, and I don't necessarily know the reason for that. But Indiana on a back-to-back as well, which kind of lends itself to some slow. They're probably going to play at a pace that's dictated by the Jazz at home, who have played a lot slower as of late. So like I said, slowest team in the NBA over the last week or so, which is kind of funny because they used to do this. Over the last few years, they really slowed down, and then over the last 2 years, they picked it back up. But this is probably my biggest edge of the day. I have it like 210, so. I agree with the current movement, but I would probably still play 215. I'd probably play almost any number you're going to see out there today. I would be surprised if, it got down to anywhere close to 210, but, I pretty much would play any number that you could get today.
Yeah. Mike Conley came back recently for Utah. I don't think he's been playing a ton of minutes yet. He's only played 1 or 2 games. That might have something to do with it because he's normally considered a pretty good defensive player, and maybe that's bringing down the pace that they were playing at without him or so. Paulie, anything for you, Indiana-Utah game?
I have no value in that game, Benny.
All right, so that brings us to the last game I have here: Golden State Warriors, Portland Trail Blazers. Blazers are favored by. They opened as a 9-point favorite. They're down to a 6-point favorite. Opened with a 219 total. The total's up to 220.5. Things that I know from now. Looks like Draymond Green is going to play. It looks like C.J. McCollum is not going to play. I don't know when those things were announced, if that's the reason for this line movement. But, Paulie, anything you're looking at here, Golden State and Portland?
Yeah, this was my largest edge today and largest play. I grabbed Golden State +8. And that was even after McCollum was ruled out and Draymond said he was going to be playing. It really started to move just a couple hours ago. really when the limits started to get taken off.
Uh-huh.
I had this game closer to believe it or not, about a 1.5 point spread.
Okay.
And was able to get it at 8. So it's sitting in the market 6.5 now. I would still make a pretty heavy play on it. Portland's just very, very trashy on offense when CJ McCollum is out, because all you can do is just focus on Damian Lillard. Golden State's just going to double team Lillard the entire time, kind of how you can do to James Harden when Russell Westbrook's off the court, and pretty much make everyone else beat you. And Portland's supporting cast this year is just not as good as it used to be in past years, because they got rid of all their best supporting pieces. They also got, you may not think of it much, but getting rid of Tolliver for Portland was, they're going to be shorthanded because Ariza's not going to be playing yet for Portland. They got Sacramento. So you got a shorthanded team with not many pieces around Lillard. I'm definitely leaning Golden State here. That's almost back to full health.
I mean, Frank, what could possibly go wrong on a 25-shot Carmelo Anthony day?
Yeah. I'm looking at this now, and I just kind of took I had this game X'd off because I wasn't sure about the injuries, but I've got it at 2.5. I'm kind of shocked to see that. So I'm going to be adding Golden State as well. Portland, if you just look at the roster, no CJ, no Hood, no Collins, no Ariza, no Nurkic, Gabriel out, Scott out. So it's crazy. I mean, they don't have hardly any guys. I mean, you're seeing full minutes from Carmelo, who admittedly has been a little bit more efficient as of late. 20 minutes for Little. Gary Trent's getting 32 in my model.
Yep. He played
Mario
36 last game. Him and Anthony Simons, 36 minutes each last game.
Anthony's one of the worst players in the NBA, and he's getting 35 minutes.
Yep.
I don't, they have Lillard and they have Whiteside, and that's it. The rest of the guys on the team are minus players, and not to make this Warriors team out to be like some gangbuster team, but like Russell, Draymond, GR3, Burks, like they're okay. They're not great, but the Golden State is basically playing their bad roster against Portland's bench. Lillard and Portland's bench.
Yeah.
And Portland already has one of the worst benches in the NBA, and I've talked about that before. The reason I think for their struggle is that CJ and Lillard have had to carry so much of the load because the bench is just so inefficient. It's just so bad, and that's where they're getting beat up. So yeah, I'm gonna play Warriors here at 6. I'm seeing 6 and 6.5. Like, again, I would probably play that at pretty much any number you're going to see today. I just don't see it moving that much.
Yeah, so I mean,
think it'll move towards us, but not to 2.5, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that opened with a line of 9. Portland favored by 9. So these guys have it at 1.5 and 2.5. So even at 6, there's still a lot of value there. That's still a pretty decent edge that you have on that side. So
there's going to be some good in-game value here with McCollum being out, because Lillard, his rotation time, he's going to play the entire first quarter, and then he's going to sit the first 5 to 6 minutes of the second quarter, and they'll do the same thing, checking out near the end of the third quarter in the second half. And when he sits, they are one of the worst rotations in the NBA when McCollum is not on the court. So that's one where when Lillard checks out, you can almost guarantee hit Golden State, and when they checks back in, you can middle it back the other way 6 minutes later if you want to.
All right, interesting. And if you want to do that and you don't know what Paulie's saying, that's why I said make sure you get over there in the check, because that's one of the kind of things that we'll be talking about tomorrow or tonight when he puts those bets in there. So we got a big game, big day today, 14 games overall, big MLK slate. Anything you guys want to add before we sign off here? We went through all the games already. So
no, I mean, this will be as many plays as I'm ever going to have. I don't know the reason for that. I was expecting to maybe play 3 games or so. The NBA has been so efficient for me, but a lot of these numbers are moving like crazy. So I'm not necessarily depressed about it having, so many plays here.
Paulie, anything for you?
Yeah, it's going to be a wild and crazy day with so many games going on across the board. But it's nice that, on MLK, they kind of space it out by starting the games in the early afternoon all the way to the night. So you really shouldn't have more than about 5 games going on at once. So it should be pretty easy to track and watch.
Yeah, it's a great thing for sports betting, a really crappy thing for fantasy, because you got all these random slates starting at 2:00 where we don't know some of the injury news for some of the games later on in the day. But like you said, on the sports betting side of it, it's fun because you don't have a ton of games going on. You can watch them, you can track them, and if you get over there into chat, you might even be able to get some in-game bets on them. So for Paulie and for Frank, this has been Benny, and we're signing off for another episode of The Opening Line.